Hello, this is your instructor, Mandy Wheeler, and I'm going to try to do some of these videos for each of the sections that we're going to cover this semester. And if there's anything else that you would like to see an example of, because I know it's hard taking a class that is completely online, this at least we can have a little bit of interaction, even if it's not synchronous face-to-face, we can still I can still work out some examples and give you the explanation that I would normally give in class. But so let's just go ahead and get started. So this is section 1.3. This is where we're looking at the complex numbers. And the problem is perform the indicated operation and write in standard form. So first of all, the operation that we have here is subtraction. The most common mistake on this is to make this problem a whole lot harder than it is. When we are subtracting, we're going to distribute the negative, but then the parentheses are going to go away. So the parentheses around this first one aren't really doing anything other than just kind of separating it, but mathematically are not doing anything. So that first one is going to be 1 minus 3i, and then we are going to distribute that negative to everything in the second set of parentheses. That's going to give us minus 5 minus 4i. And then this one, we're just combining like terms. We want to write it in standard form. Remember, standard form is a plus bi. We're not going to have any I squareds. We're not going to have any i's in the denominator. We're going to have a real part and an imaginary part. So on this one, we're going to combine like terms. And so 1 minus 5 gives us negative 4. Negative 3i minus 4i is negative 7i. And that will be our answer. All right, on number 2, now we're going to square it. So remember, squaring it, that's the same thing as multiplying the binomial by itself. And you can use any of the tricks that you have used in any of your algebra classes coming up to this in order to expand this. The acronym that I use most often is FOIL, first, outside, inside, last. It works the same with i's as it does with x's. So when we multiply this, first times first, negative 2 times negative 2 is positive 4. Outside times outside, we're going to get negative 2 times I. And then inside times inside, I times negative 2. And last times last, I times I. Really, the most common mistake on this is just to miss signs. So make sure you're paying attention to positives and negatives on this one. Now we want to write this in standard form. Well, standard form doesn't have any I squared, so we need to get rid of that I squared. I'm going to go ahead while I'm at it. I'm going to combine like terms here. And remember, I squared is the same thing as negative 1, so plus a negative 1 is the same thing as minus 1. Now we just have real parts and imaginary parts, and we can combine like terms. 4 minus 1 is 3. And we get 3 minus 4i. All right, and then the last one here is a division problem. And there's a couple of them that we did, that I did in my lesson notes and you did on your homework where you had a complex number divided by a complex number. Here we have a complex number divided by just the imaginary part I, but we're going to treat it exactly the same way. Remember, whenever we're dividing complex numbers, we always multiply by the conjugate. Well, another way that we could write I is 0 plus I. And so the conjugate of 0 plus I is 0 minus I. So what we want to do here is multiply by 0 minus I. Well, 0 minus I is just negative I. And then we're going to multiply it out. Had we used a had to use a complex number where we were multiplying by something like 2 minus I instead of just minus I, we would FOIL it out in the exact same way we did on this one. But on this one, since we don't, it's going to just be Distributing that, so 8 times negative I is negative 8I. Negative 3I times negative I, negative times a negative is a positive, and then 3I squared. And then in the denominator, we get negative I squared, multiplying that out. Again, anytime we have an I squared, we want to rewrite that. So I squared is negative 1. Same thing on the bottom here. We want to rewrite that. And pay attention to your signs down the bottom. So in the numerator, we get negative 8I, and then plus 3 times negative 1 is a negative 3. And then in the denominator, we have minus a negative 1. Well, minus a negative is just a positive, and dividing by that 1 doesn't do anything. So we get just negative 8I minus 3. And I'm perfectly fine with this answer. Normally, you're going to see it the real part first, so I'm going to just rearrange it here. But like I said, anything handwritten that you turn into me, I'm perfectly fine with you leaving it in that, as long as there's not any I squareds or anything like that. All right, that finishes up the examples that I wanted to do for section 1.3. I hope you guys have a good day.